What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here, another podcast. What's going on in pop culture right now? We got a small one this week, but I think some key things to discuss. Chief among them would be new album from Billie Eilish, Hit Me Hard and Soft, her third album. Also new music from Zayn and Rapsody. And then to round it out, new movie Back to Black, the new Amy Winehouse biopic film starring Marisa Abela from HBO's Industry. So make sure you subscribe, youtube.com/nostalgiapod, linktree.com/nostalgiapod, see links below. Get the podcast any way you can. Just make sure you get it. Get the best of 2024 Spotify playlist linked below as well. Let's get into it. What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of Back to Black, the new music biopic film about Amy Winehouse, starring Marisa Abela, directed by Sam Taylor Johnson. We're here with another music biopic film. This is a very tried and true genre. This is a film genre that is very consistent at the box office and often quite critic proof. I mean, just this year, a few months ago, we had the Bob Marley biopic do quite well. Of course, the highs of films like Rocket Man, especially Bohemian Rhapsody. This is a film genre that has a lot of potential, as a famous musician of the past is its own form of IP. Not every music biopic film is a blockbuster, though. The Whitney Houston film from a few years ago didn't do too well. Back to Black has done decent business over in Europe so far and is now opening in the United States in, a summer May slot. Amy Winehouse is certainly a subject for a music biopic film, very deserving, of course, a very easy to foresee story put on the screen. Makes a lot of sense, and the probably most significant musician of that ilk left to get a film will have that answered next year when, of course, the much anticipated, notorious, controversial Michael Jackson biopic film from Anton Fuqua comes out next year. So we will be talking about music biopics for as long as there are pop stars to make them about, I would imagine. Now, Back to Black, though, is coming at an interesting time because it's 9 years after the critically acclaimed Amy documentary about Amy Winehouse that won the Oscar for Best Documentary Feature and was really lauded for its portrayal and storytelling of the Amy Winehouse story, and of course how tragic that was. So any biopic film is going to be compared to something like that, especially when, like many biopics these days, it is being created in conjunction with the estate of the subject. Now, it's one of those push-pull things where if you don't cooperate with the estate, you probably won't be able to license the music, and without the music, your movie will likely be quite lacking. The music is really the number one driver of people to see the film, so it's a tough situation. Unfortunately, Back to Black is quite disappointing. As far as music biopic films go, the Amy Winehouse story makes a lot of sense, but Back to Black is so uninterested in telling the story of Amy Winehouse's musical career and the things she contributed to the world that made people love her. It's really so focused on Amy's domestic life and Amy's, of course, personal struggles with substance abuse, mental health issues, etc. It almost glosses over the highlights of her career. It does not do a good job of communicating her rise to fame. The movie doesn't really communicate the passage of time all that well. It's quite frustrating in that regard. And it's a shame because I think Marisa Abela was really nice casting as Amy Winehouse. I've been a fan of her ever since she kind of came out of nowhere on Industry, and she's great, and she does her own singing. Abela acquits herself well singing Amy Winehouse's songs, even if she can't obviously compare to the kind of one-of-a-kind vocals that was Winehouse in her day. It also stands out quite a bit how this movie really sands down, glosses over some of the issues in the Amy Winehouse story regarding her family, specifically her father, who is portrayed in the film, but a lot of the negative aspects about how he was involved in Amy's career and her life, conveniently not in the film. But more than anything, I wish this actually showed what kind of creator she was. You hear all the plaudits that people would talk about, people that had the privilege of working with her, someone like Mark Ronson, who gets a passing mention in this movie. Mark Ronson spoke about how much he loved working in the studio with Amy. We don't get any studio time. It's really stupid. You get a few montage moments where you see her recording, but there's no substance to the scenes. I think of a film like Bohemian Rhapsody, a classic example of a flawed biopic film, but one that was really popular. You know what's fun about Bohemian Rhapsody? Watching Freddie and the boys sit in the studio and then kind of conveniently come up with the melody to Another One Bites the Dust, something that's almost assumingly completely fictional for the purposes of the film. But you know what it is? It's a fun scene to be with, and it leads up to something you recognize as the viewer, as a fan of that band. Nothing close to that with Back to Black, you know? And we belabor the point of Amy's substance abuse, which is, of course, inextricably linked to everything about her public persona and her career. Of course, you cannot gloss over any of that. But do we really need to see her get a tattoo for like the third different time in the movie? It's not adding anything. I thought Jack O'Connell was pretty good as the rakish Blake Fiedler Civil, Amy's eventual husband. I think the scene of when they kind of meet cute at the bar, the way that's kind of protracted out as they come together and become attracted to another, leading up to a scene of them playing pool. I actually thought that scene was really good. Probably the best example of Abela and O'Connell having chemistry in the film. I thought that was really fun. Ultimately, though, I feel like we really spun our wheels a lot with the same kind of beats of Amy being a drunk, being very violent in her relationship, especially, and having a hard time dealing with the fame and the paparazzi. But we never get under that surface. And meanwhile, the passage of time between the album Frank and the album Back to Black, it's very fuzzy. We like barely get in the Grammy moment. I wish there was more lead up to the Grammys. I wish there was like just a little bit of like hammering home how successful she was. I mean, Back to Black is the 12th best-selling album in UK history. Like, she was absolute megastar in the UK. Not to mention the fact how global she got with the second album. Like, it doesn't communicate any of that. You know, I would have loved some of the label stuff. The fact that, you know, we show the Island Records courtship, but we gloss over the fact that there was actual label bidding where other labels were trying to sign her. Like, there's just a lot of stuff missing. And yeah, it's hard to tell a whole person's complete life in 2 hours, but it's frustrating when you leave things out and then you kind of spin your wheels with the stuff you leave in. I just don't feel like it really pleases any party. And we get a passing mention that Frank was nominated for the Mercury Prize in the UK. Oh yeah, sorry, we can't sell you in the US. Let's keep it moving. Like, I'm sorry, but like we got to spend more time with the superstar. We got the Nova, the rocket ship. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Overall, though, I think Jack O'Connell and Marisa Abela, they do their best with the material. Abela in particular really kind of transforms into Amy Winehouse, I think, as best as anyone can. You know, obviously Amy Winehouse, very singular figure in pop, you know, during her day, partially due to her kind of throwback appearance, her throwback musical influences and inspirations in terms of really being kind of a singular one-of-one artist, especially at that time. Abela, I think hats off, did a pretty good job. Looking forward to seeing Industry Season 3 on HBO later this year. Jack O'Connell, he's kind of been crushing for a while now, people know. But yeah, Back to Black, this is in the disappointing music biopic bucket. I don't see how it's anything but that. But yeah, let me know, did you like Back to Black more than me? If so, please let me know why. And for more film reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of Rapsody's fourth album, Please Don't Cry. This is Rapsody's first album since Eve back in 2019. It's been 5 years, long time coming for Rapsody, who's now an old head, an OG in the rap game, 41 years old. This is their third album on Rock Nation as well. And I think at this point, Rapsody very well established as, you know, one of the best and probably still underrated rappers active in the game right now, really making her name with some high-profile guest features with people such as Kendrick Lamar, and then, of course, really getting some critical acclaim with her solo albums. Now we're back with another one. Rapsody's fourth album, Please Don't Cry, I would say it's a step in a similar direction for Rapsody sonically, but definitely her most inward-looking album. Lyrically, it's a lot of very personal lyrics here. I don't want to call the music dense per se, but this is definitely music that requires multiple listens just because there's a lot here in terms of the subject matter. And also with Ninth Wonder producing, it's no surprise that the beats, the instrumentation is really quite layered as well. It's definitely an album that requires, I think, a lot of your attention, a lot of your focus, and it's a long album at 22 songs, 65 minutes. So you really got to sit with this one to, I think, really appreciate it. But there's definitely some highlights here. I really like the song D&D. It's not personal, almost kind of like a West Coast vibe with the instrumentation, kind of a soulful chorus as well, then a really stripped back outro. That one was good. Black Pop Star, Rapsody giving you a real punchline flow, really fun. Diary of a Mad Bitch, BB Borelli on the chorus, really memorable. fun drums and guitar on this one. And then He Shot Me with a very noticeable interpolation, basically sample of Bob Marley's I Shot the Sheriff, ostensibly being that song's chorus. Then you have Rapsody bars with Bob Marley. Sounds pretty cool. I also quite enjoyed Back in My Bag, which is just Rapsody being super aggressive, just rapping her ass off. Really fun. So there's soulful moments here, there's hard bars here, there's a bit of a range, but overall, definitely music in terms of the lyrical sentiment and Rapsody telling you things about herself and her family in her past few years. There's a lot to glean from this one, so it's going to take some time to really sit with. It's fun that Felicia Rashad is, quote, featured on this 3 times. Baby Tate, I like that feature as well. Nice look for her. Lil Wayne is on here too. I think solid, memorable result. Rapsody holding her own against Wayne. And yeah, I think at this point, like Rapsody, this is still, even if the lyrics are more eye-opening than the past, this is still in line with expectations for Rapsody. And, I think if you're not like super connected to the lyrics, I don't know how much this will change your expectation, evaluation of Rapsody. She's a really good rapper. Their technical ability, the flow, the breath control, that's all like really well established at this point. But on the other hand, I hear Rapsody on this album talking about how she would be in the GOAT debate if she was a man. And on one hand, I appreciate her bringing up the unfairness that female MCs have faced in hip hop over the course of rap's history. She brings up Lil' Kim as an example as well. Glad that we're hearing that on a mainstream rap album. On the other hand, though, despite the confidence, Rapsody would not be in the GOAT debate if she was a man. We can just leave it at that. But it's fun nonetheless. But yeah, Rapsody, good rapper, really good rapper, and that continues on Please Don't Cry. But let me know, what was your favorite song on this? What did you like most about the album overall? And for more rap reviews, more music reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of Zayn's 4th album, Room Under the Stairs. Zayn Malik back with his first record in 3 years. Of course, Zayn Malik, you know him at this point, the first One Direction member to go solo a long time ago at this point. That was back in 2015. And, in that time, 3 albums from Zayn, very high profile public relationship with Gigi Hadid, Zayn becoming a father. But really, I think the takeaway from the Zayn solo experience thus far has been perhaps the anti-takeaway, the anti-experience of it all, is that Zayn, not someone who wanted to really do any press and play any kind of pop machine games, despite debuting as a pop R&B singer, as a soloist, with Pillow Talk being a massive hit. Zayn was not trying to do a lot of press. He basically never performed live, and he cited, his own personal anxiety as the reason before all this, right? So Zayn hasn't really made a big, I think, public impression, despite the fact that he's been a massively popular artist with a lot of fans. Of course, since then, all the other 1D guys have made their own solo music, and they've all had varying degrees of success. We don't have to talk about them here. But Zayn, with his 4th album, it definitely feels like I don't want to say turning point, but definitely a new chapter in the Zayn solo career for a few key reasons. But one of them is that he's actually kind of opening up out of his shell and promoting the album and doing live performances around it. He's not going on a full-fledged arena tour yet, although he certainly could if he wanted to. He has enough fans. We'll see if that comes in time. The most interesting thing about Zayn's 4th album, Room Under the Stairs, is that Zayn has made a very noticeable sonic pivot. Zayn has basically made a country album. And I would say this comes across as quite genuine because Zayn has been living in the, quote, country. He recorded this album in Georgia. He made this with Dave Cobb, the Nashville-based producer who's worked with people like Chris Stapleton. Product of how Zayn has receded from the public eye in terms of how he's moved in his personal life. To me, it's actually a really interesting pivot for him because I have never been the biggest fan of the type of pop R&B he had made in the past. I think this type of music, this type of instrumentation of just making a genre change, really serves the Zayn Malik vocals quite well because he does have a striking smoky voice, but a lot of times the production had been very samey and uninteresting to me on the past records. I think with Room Under the Stairs, that's definitely changing. Zayn solo wrote 12 of the 15 songs on this new album, but funny enough, my two favorite songs are the ones that he had some help with co-writing wise. I think Something in the Water, the Zayn vocals are very strong, very memorable. I love the distorted vocal line of the water when it drops in, sounds cool. But it's a very sultry chorus, which is something you would expect from Zayn Malik. Then I also quite like the song Stardust, which has a really nice drum tempo, but also still quite acoustic. I'm definitely curious if this is a forward path for Zayn or really just a product of how he has been moving and living and feeling lately. On one hand, people going country or going country pop, it's a bit more of a mainstream pivot for pop stars. We've seen it lately. Think people like Post Malone collabing with Morgan Wallen. Think of the success of someone like Noah Kahan. This is not out of nowhere the same way like making a pop punk pivot was not out of nowhere post Olivia Rodrigo, right? I'm choosing to give him a bit more credit and grace though in the choice because it is coming across as genuine and like quote earned as such a thing can be. And I'll just be curious if this continues. But more than anything, I'd be rooting for him to hopefully continue to take this step forward and be more of a public artist, even if he's someone who wants to avoid a lot of press and obviously avoid a lot of tabloid attention that he seemingly can't escape. It is a bit of a shame that someone so popular has never been able to really connect with his fans publicly in such a way by performing. And not that he probably needs the money, but that is the number one way artists earn these days is by going out on tour. So hopefully he can get past that at least a little bit. But yeah, to me, this is my favorite Zayn album. And I'm not sure if that's a hot take to the Zayn fans. Because again, I didn't really connect with the past work. But to me, this is definitely a step forward from him. I think vocally he can still blend together a bit at times, but the vocals are genuinely strong enough that because the production is more interesting this time around, the songs overall are just served better and it's just a higher quality, higher floor album. So shout out Zayn, it's a step in the right direction. I'll be very curious to see what continues, see how long it goes between this and the next album. Will it be another 3 years? Will it be shorter, longer? We'll see what kind of pop star he maybe becomes. Don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, but let me know, what did you think of Zayn's fourth album, Room Under the Stairs? Do you like it the most of his work like I do? Either way, let me know why. And for more music reviews, subscribe. And I'll see you next time. What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of Billie Eilish's third album, Hit Me Hard and Soft. Billie is back, even though she really never went away. Billie's actually become incredibly ubiquitous in pop music, and look no further than her absolute domination at award shows, specifically the Grammys, where at 22 years old, she's already won 9 times. She's been nominated the last 5 Grammy Awards. And to really put a finer note on just how much of an awards darling and popular artist she is, she won Song of the Year for What Was I Made For and Record of the Year for Everything I Wanted, 2 singles that were not part of her albums. Of course, Everything I Wanted, a loose single, What Was I Made For on the Barbie soundtrack last year. Even when Billie's in between albums, she's still getting tons of love. Of course, also winning Best Original Song at the Oscars 2 different times already. She really is just a force, and it's cool to see, I guess, because Billie remains very committed to her creative inner circle, which is writing and producing songs exclusively with her brother Phineas. That's still what this album is. That's still how Billie likes to move, and I think it's something you definitely respect just because it really sets her apart from a lot of her pop peers. Despite Billie's young age, it's pretty clear that she's gone through quite the artistic arc already, just thinking about what the last album sounded like in relation to the debut, and now what this new album sounds like in relation to the past 2. Billie sonically has definitely changed from where she first burst onto the scene. We're just not really getting the emo pop banger that we had on the debut album, the sound that really propelled her, right? We're not really in that mode anymore, except for a few moments. More than anything, we're really more in line with the second album, which is, very ballad heavy, very Billie vocals front and center, but it's usually pretty down-tempo music. So I think you have to really be into that type of music and really be connecting with her lyrics. I think Billie has opened up a lot on the second album about her meteoric rise to fame at a young age and how that affected her in terms of just becoming immensely famous and what that entailed. And then on this new album, Billie opening up about her sexuality and how that, kind of became an awakening for herself, and now she's putting that front and center. That's very clear in this album. Also, body image, of course, Billie's body image and, her fashion and how those two things related over the years has been a huge talking point, and Billie's opening up on that more. The first song is literally called Skinny, for example. Billie Eilish is still very interesting, and yet her third album, Hit Me Hard and Soft, it's more of the same from the second album's sound for the most part. I would say there's one clear highlight. Frankly, this is a song that makes the whole album worthwhile, and that would be Lunch. It's one of the best songs Billie has ever made. Lunch is a groovy bop, super up-tempo, really awesome bass line, complete banger, and yet it is the most overt gay sex jam I've heard in a long time. Like, no shots at Chappelle Roan, but like, Billie's gonna have a massive hit talking about eating a girl's box. Like, this is crazy. But this song goes. Like, this song, I think, is a contender for Song of the Summer. And Lunch really stands out because it's in stark contrast to the rest of this album, which is a lot more of what you're used to from Billie. A lot of piano ballads, a lot of really quiet, down-tempo songs. Yes, lyrically, there's things to be interested in. Billie talking about her sexuality, talking about her body image, but I think more often than not, a lot of these songs are not the most engaging songs in a vacuum. And I think it's like those big crescendo moments that you get on songs here and there, songs like Chihiro or Blue, the last track. Like, there's moments. But for me, this kind of falls in the same bucket as the second album, where it's like I definitely appreciate certain songs with it, but as a full album, it's hard for me to connect to. And I really think that's just because I'm comparing it to the first album, which I like so much because to me it was so much more pop leaning, so much more engaging to me, just being a lot higher energy. And when Billie's not as high energy on most of the songs apart from Lunch, it just doesn't grab me as well. What Was I Made For? A song approaching 900 million streams on Spotify wins, the Oscar, wins the Grammy, right? That's not my Billie. That's not my mode. Obviously it's very much many people's mode when it comes to the Billie sound, but that's not really where I connect. Just kind of jumping through some of the other songs here. I think the first song, Skinny, I love the lyrical message of it. But really, it's a classic Billie ballad. Like, it's a type of Billie song you've heard before. The orchestral outro touch towards the end of the song I thought sounded really nice. Chihiro. I love the song title. Of course, that's the reference to Spirited Away, the name of the lead character. Love that. Kind of nice, fun bass thumping, and then about 3 minutes in, the guitar kind of shows up for the first time. It's nice. But then this is where the album, to me, like, really drops off for 3 songs. Birds of a Feather, Wildflower, and The Greatest. Like, these are quiet. These are tough songs for me. Wildflower, it's pretty acoustic. The Greatest really feels like a Billie song I've heard before. I just really cannot connect with those 3. It starts to pick back up though from here on out, where you have L'amour de ma vie, which definitely an interesting song in terms of recent Billie output, just because the instrumentation has a little bit more going on to it, and the beat like really flips almost into like 80s like Phil Collins for a split second, and then Billie starts dropping auto-tune lyrics on you. Like, definitely not something she's done before. I'd be curious if she could explore that type of sonic lane in the future, just because she hasn't really done too much of that before. It's definitely interesting to me, but it's kind of like a one-off in the course of this album here. The Diner. This is an interesting one. Not so much that like the song's amazing, but just like the beat, almost like a horror movie, like whistly vibe. It's a nod to the sonic sound of the first album. And I think that's why it's like, quote, interesting, even if the song itself to me doesn't fully come together. And the last 2 songs, Bittersweet, I enjoyed the bass line on this, kind of a fun, moody outro. And the last song, Blue, like really great snares, kind of up-tempo again. And then a lot of big switch-ups from Phineas on that one. But yeah, like I said, the highlight has to be Lunch. And it's such an outlier on this track list. But like, to me, that's one of the best songs I've heard this year. And like Billie's breath control during the verses is so great. An awesome performance from her. And you can almost like see the smile, hear the smile on her face as she's, singing these lyrics. It's really fun. The melody on that song, to me, it is like, that's when I think of Billie and Phineas as talented musicians, which of course they are. That's what I think of, because they have that kind of thing in their back pocket whenever they want. And clearly that kind of more, mainstream leaning sound, it's not something they're super interested in doing all the time, obviously, right? And it's funny to me that they're like, okay, fine, we'll do something for the radio. We have an instant hit here. We'll put it on the track list. We'll do the music video for it. But lyrically, it's still going to be very much in line with the premise of this album. And it's going to be very explicit about Billie trying to seduce a woman and eat her out. And I think that's amazing. So yeah, I mean, I think Billie Eilish, this is kind of status quo. Like, she's a massive star. She's about to go on an arena tour later in the year in support of this album. She's the real deal. And there's no doubt in my mind that she will be a Grammy presence once again, making it 6 Grammys in a row that she'll be nominated. That's a lock. Album of the year, probably a nomination, probably going head to head with Taylor Swift. Interesting battle. I'll be curious who else is in the mix for that. There's one thing that I'm like curious, and I know it'll happen eventually, right? Like in the Barbie soundtrack song, for example, like there's evidence of this, but like I would love to just know what it's like when Billie works with someone besides Phineas, or Billie and Phineas work with other people as well. It's not they haven't done this before, but they don't do it often. Like, what does a Billie guest spot sound like, on someone else's song? Like, do any of those exist? Not many, right? I'm just curious. Phineas has worked with other people. We know what that's like. Like, he's such a talented guy. He can be a chameleon. But Billie, like, as a vocalist, I think it's a little untapped, and I think maybe that's part of the idea, to like control the brand and keep it close knit. But I'd just be curious, like, what else could happen, because she is, I think, pretty versatile as a vocalist, right? She can perform on all kinds of different songs. And of course, we know Phineas can basically do anything production wise. So, she's only 22 years old. Like, all this will happen in time, but I feel like we've been through so much time already with Billie Eilish over the past 6-7 years or so, that it's just funny to reflect on so much more to come in the future. And that, I think, just speaks to just how impressive her career has been to this point. And we know it's going to have a quite long tail to follow. But let me know, how did you feel about Billie Eilish's third album, Hit Me Hard and Soft? What was your first song? How would you like it in comparison to her last albums? What do you want to hear from her next? And for more music reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. All right, so that's going to do for the pod this week. Next week, we have a big one. Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, the new Mad Max prequel film starring Anya Taylor-Joy. Very exciting. Can't wait to get into that. We also have a lot of new music. Vince Staples' album, New Jeans, new music. RM of BTS, new album. 21 Pilots, new album. And then we have 2 other things that are also coming that I'm going to get to in 2 weeks, because I'm going to be away this weekend. That would be the conclusion of HBO's The Sympathizer, and also a new album from aespa. So make sure you subscribe. youtube.com/nostalgiapod, linktree.com/nostalgiapod. See links below. Get the podcast. Leave a review. See the links below. Get the best of 2024 Spotify playlist, also linked below. Let me know it's good, and I'll see you next week.